Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at the Classic Collection, and the Classic Collection adds lots of new and powerful cards to build new and exciting decks with, or update some current and existing decks. So today's deck profile video is going to be me updating the D-Brigades deck. So yes, D-Brigades is still going to be a deck. It actually gets more tools to be working around with because of all of the synergies that the Classic Collection is adding for the deck to be utilizing. And the synergies that I'm referring to are going to be cyborgs and machine type synergies on top of another small little package that you could possibly use inside of your D-Brigade deck, which is going to be the Etemon package. So the Etemon package is a nice little small package that the deck isn't necessarily dedicating that much resources to include, and it's still adding some extra resilience and punch factor to what the deck was already doing. So without further ado, onto the deck profile. Starting off with the Digitama, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Tsumemon as the main Digitama, so we're just using this card to try to DP boost our Digimon because we're using a lot of name-based synergies. We have lots of Commandramons, we have lots of Etemons, and we even have lots of MetalEtemons to take advantage of the fact that they're all sharing the same name to make them even stronger thanks to Tsunemon's ability, where while you have another Digimon in play with the same name as this one, it'll get plus 2000 DP, just making it a very sizable boost for your Digimon to hit as hard as they possibly can with as much DP as they possibly can. And then the 5th Digitama slot could really be anything you want it to be. If you wanted this to be Pagumon, that's totally fine. I'm just choosing to prefer using DP boosts over everything else, just because I think DP boosting is really powerful. But Pagumon fits in the slot just fine, and it's not necessarily that big of a deal because this is just the 5th Digitama slot, and Missimon is helping all of the Commandramons and D-Brigade Digimon by giving the D-Brigade Digimon this is underneath plus 1000 DP as it's inheritable, so it's just another DP boost. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Commandramon. So we still have to play the Commandramon package, and this is well in the Commandramon package. It's a pretty solid rookie in of itself, being a tempo-efficient rookie while having Commandramon in its name and Cyborg in its traits, on top of it being a D-Brigade. Next up, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Commandramon. So this is the BT04 version of Commandramon, and this is probably the most important Commandramon because, well, it's making all of our other Commandramons that much better to use. So it has the nice powerful on-delete ability where we get to check the top 3 cards of our deck and then play 1 Commandramon from among them for free, and the rest go to the bottom. So he's basically just going to be replacing himself when he dies is the whole goal and intention. Next up, we have 4 copies of Commandramon. So this is the BT05 version of Commandramon, and this Commandramon is acting as a blocker for the deck that also can aggress on top of him being a Commandramon, Cyborg, and D-Brigade. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Commandramon. So this is the starter deck version of Commandramon, and this Commandramon is going to be the main one we want to actually aggress with and try to keep around just because he has a native 5000 DP, so we could use all of our DP boosts to make this Commandramon that much stronger when we're using him to aggress with. Next, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Sealsdramon. So Sealsdramon is a really powerful card just because it's a really solid blocker for the deck to be using. And on top of that, it is a Cyborg and D-Brigade card, so it couples with all of the synergies that we're going to be playing around with in the deck, just making him a really good card to use. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Mekanorimon. So Mekanorimon is an absolutely insane blocker for the deck to be using because, well, if we're trying to aggress, we also want to figure out good ways to stop the opponent from aggressing into us, so that way we could try to continuously aggress into them. So there's no better defensive card in the champion level than Mekanorimon because he could just recursively block the opponent's Digimon as long as he's stronger than the opponent's Digimon, and that's the primary goal, is just to try to slow them down enough so that way we could try to push our aggression to outpace theirs. And then the last champion of the deck is going to be 4 copies of DarkTyrannomon. So DarkTyrannomon is acting as a really good tempo tool for the deck to be using. You could easily replace this card with any other tempo efficient card that you wanted to use. So you could use Numemon or Tankmon in its spot, but I do like DarkTyrannomon because it also has the upside of being a blocker. In case we need to use it defensively, we could just digivolve into this card, sit on it for a turn or two, and then wait until we can see our other parts and pieces to use this card to digivolve into our higher stages with, because it was a lower investment to digivolve into than some of our other blockers. So I really like the utility on what we could do with this card versus some of the others, but it's just acting as the tempo efficiency slot of the deck. Next, on to the ultimates. I'm going to be running 4 copies of Etemon. So this is the BT03 version of Etemon, and this Etemon is a really solid Digimon because, well, he is another blocker, so we could use him defensively. He actually doesn't have any downside to wanting to aggress with the card, so if we actually wanted to swing with him, then we could as well. And he has a nice on-delete ability where we get a look at the top 5 cards of our deck and place 1 level 6 Digimon with Etemon in its name from among them onto the field for free, and the rest go to the bottom of the deck. So it's acting very similar to Commandramon, except it's bringing out an even stronger Etemon out of the top, which we have cards to help rig the top cards of our deck and try to see the parts and pieces that we need to make this card as good as we could possibly make him. And then the last ultimate of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Etemon. So this is the classic version of Etemon, and this Etemon is really good because he has both a native ability and an inheritable ability. So what this card is doing natively is during your turn, when this Digimon digivolves into a card with Etemon in its name, then you get to reduce the memory cost of the Digivolution by 1. So it's making us digivolve into our MetalEtemons that much more efficient, which is really, really good. So that way we could easily climb our stages, and it's really good on our MetalEtemons because it also has the nice inheritable ability where during your turn, while this Digimon has Etemon in its name, it gains jamming, so that way it allows our MetalEtemons to attack as safely onto the opponent's security as they possibly can, which they both are really good at aggressing with, and you definitely want to aggress with either of them. Next, on to the Megas. I'm going to be running 3 copies of MetalEtemon. So this is the BT03 version of MetalEtemon, and this MetalEtemon is really, really good, even though he is a little bit on the simplistic side. So what this card is doing is he has this nice ability where during your turn, this Digimon can't be blocked, which is really powerful, so that way we could bypass a lot of the opponent's defenses and try to chip at their security, so that way we could still continuously aggress onto their security, and coupled this with the jamming ability makes it just a very safe and easy card to swing with, especially since he also has another upside where during the opponent's turn, this Digimon gets plus 2000 DP, making it a little bit harder for the opponent to interact with him when he's just continuously swinging onto the opponent's security. Granted, it's not as good as an ability now as it was back when he was initially released, just because there wasn't as much ways to massively DP boost your Digimon, but he's still just a solid card to be using because, well, a free Etemon off of the OG Etemon is still really powerful, and we could tempo digivolve into him and give him the jamming ability off of the new Etemon, still making him a good card to use. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Darkdramon. So Darkdramon is just the powerhouse backbone of what the deck is trying to do because of, well, how strong this card is. So he natively has the rush ability, so the turn you play him is the turn that he can swing, and you could actually play this card and use the rush ability because of his on-play ability. You get to return up to 5 Digimon with D-brigade in their types from your trash to the top of your deck in any order. Then for each card returned to the top this way, you get to gain 2 memory. So ideally, he's only going to be costing 3 because you're going to want to return 5 to gain 10 memory back, and that's just what's making him an easy card to slam onto the field and swing with right away. And then the last level 6 of the deck is going to be 3 copies of the brand new classic MetalEtemon. So this MetalEtemon is another pretty decent Digimon for the deck to be using because he has 2 really decent abilities. His first ability is a ability that happens during your turn. For each Digimon with Etemon in its name in your trash, this Digimon gets plus 1000 DP. So we have a whole bunch of different Etemons in the deck to take advantage of to make this Etemon as strong DP-wise as we can possibly make him. So we could tempo up into him, give him jamming, or he could come off for free off of the old Etemon. So there's still all of those different ways on how we could utilize this card. And then on top of that, he also has a nice on-deletion ability of his own, where you get to de-digivolve 1 on one of your opponent's Digimon, which isn't great, but hey, it's something at least. And then the last mega of the deck and the only level 7 of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Omnimon Zwart. So Omnimon Zwart is just still a very powerful card for this deck to be playing around with, especially this build particular, because we can maximize on his abilities. So he has a nice when digivolving ability to trash the top 3 cards of our deck, which is fueling up our trash for all of our trash-based synergies, which come from MetalEtemon and Darkdramon. So that's already looking to be pretty strong. And then on top of that, we get to play up to 2 black or purple Digimon with a play cost of 8 or less from our trash for free, allowing us to spawn, well, almost anything outside of our megas in the deck, which we want to primarily try to spawn either our defensive cards like Etemon or any of our blockers, or we could try to spawn more Commandramon to try to flood the field and try to aggress with. So we have lots of different ways that we could try to use this card, making it very, very strong on just that first ability alone, and then its when attacking ability allows us to return 1 level 6 Digimon from his inheritable source back to our hand to delete one of the opponent's Digimon that's unsuspended with a play cost of 12 or less, acting as some really good removal for the deck as well. So we could use this with either of our Etemons to try to reload our Etemons and to try to digivolve back into them. We could use this with Darkdramon to try to digivolve on top of the Darkdramon after he swings, so that way we could gain some additional value off of our Darkdramon and set up him again thanks to his ability. So there's just lots of different ways that we could utilize this card, making him one of the best level 7s we could use. And then as far as the tamers go, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Izzy. So Izzy is absolutely insane for this deck because not only is he acting as a memory fixing tamer, which is borderline required in order to actually use Darkdramon as efficiently as we possibly can, because we're basing all of our plays at being 3 memory, and the fact that if we're ever less than 3, this card will set us to 3 is just that good, on top of the fact that its on-play ability helps us set up the top cards of our deck so we know how to aggress onto the opponent and what cards to use when. So its on-play ability states that we get to reveal the top 3 cards of our deck. If all of them are black, we get to gain 1 memory, and on top of that, we get to place them back on top of our deck in any order, so that way we could try to rig the top of our deck for our Commandramons or our Etemons, so that way they could use their abilities as efficiently as they possibly can, making for this card to be absolutely insane for the deck. And then the other tamer, you could really be any other tamer that you feel like you want to be using. So if you want this to be Izzy and Joe, by all means, play Izzy and Joe. It's still a really good card that has some decent synergy with the deck. But I'm going to be choosing to use Analog Youth because Analog Youth is another really insane card for this deck to be playing around with. So his on-play ability allows you to look at the top 3 cards of your deck and add 1 Digimon from among them into our hand, and then the rest go into the trash. So it's help fishing for the cards that we want and pitching for the cards that we don't, or we want to try to fill up our trash to set up for our synergies. And then on top of that, he has this really powerful All Turns ability, where if a level 5 or higher Digimon with Digivolution sources is deleted, then we get to suspend this tamer to gain a memory and hatch a Digi-Egg into an empty space in our raising area, so that way we could try to, well, be as aggressive as we possibly can. And then as far as some other cards that you could possibly use in the deck, well, you have lots and lots of different options because the D-Brigade package is just a very small self-included package that can be played with lots of various other tech and tools. So you still have all of the previous incarnations and iterations of the deck that you want to be using or could be using. So if you wanted to, you could use red for some extra aggression and control. You could use blue for some extra card draw and some good tempos tools on top of some really good security abilities. And then you also have yellow with its slew of just raw value cards, because yellow just has some very valuable cards that we could take advantage of. So you still have all of those sub-packages that you could be playing around with. And then on top of that, you have some of the new cards that you could still think about utilizing, like Hagurumon to try to draw extra cards because we're still playing with machines and cyborg-based synergy. Then we also have Darkdramon as just another really solid blocker that also has a good inheritable to try to fill up our trash and draw some extra cards for doing that. Then we still have Tankdramon as a really solid card to think about. Then you have MetalEtemon and Omnimon Zwart Defeat as 2 very, very powerful level 7s that you could be thinking about if you don't want to play Omnimon Zwart. then black has a slew of very powerful options that you could be using. So Ultimate Flare can wipe the field of all of the opponent's rookies, and the D-Digivolve actually could get rid of the opponent's Mega, turning it all the way back into a rookie to, well, then be deleted off of its other ability. We have Parabolic Junk to combo with the fact that we want our Digimon to be dying to gain some additional benefit, and that benefit would be 2 memory to be playing around with to extend and enhance some of our plays. Then we have Gwalt Schwarmer as a good reset button and a way to fill up our trash as quickly as we possibly can. So not only does this card delete our Digimon, which some of our Digimon want to be deleted, so that way we could utilize their on-delete abilities, but this will also delete the opponent's lower level Digimon, so it's just a good board clear that could end up being one-sided because of how our deck wants to function. Then we do just have Iron Fisted Onslaught, which is basically Black's Gaia Force, except it could be better than Gaia Force because it could delete multiple Digimon instead of just one singular Digimon. And then we even have Black Memory Boost to be playing around with to try to help with the deck's overall consistency. So there's just a lot of tech and tools that you could utilize and take advantage of the D-Brigade package, and there's not necessarily any wrong answer on how you want to play D-Brigades, because at the end of the day, you're still going to be doing lots of very similar things. It's just what kind of tech or support package you're going to be running with it. So this is just my interpretation of what a D-Brigade / MetalEtemon deck is going to be looking like. There is lots of room for flexibility, as I mentioned before, on how you could play it. I don't necessarily think that the Etemon package, as of right now, is good enough to be a standalone deck, but it does have some really good synergy and support with everything that not only the Classic Collection was doing, but stuff that the Commandramon deck is doing, because they're playing off of some very similar themes. But I do think it's going to be a very fun and exciting deck to be playing with nonetheless, and there is just a ton of flexibility on how you could play D-Brigades as a whole. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.